Here in studio with us, we actually have got Robert Mulaudzi, who I'm going to walk across to now. So that fire that engulfed a building in central Johannesburg on Wednesday was finally extinguished late yesterday. And this was 36 hours after it broke out on the 23rd floor of the building that was occupied by the Gauteng Departments of Health and Human Settlements. 3 firefighters, as you heard, died while battling this place. Yesterday, we saw a firefighter from the Tshwane Metro, one of the reinforcements sent to Johannesburg to help with the fire, rushed off to hospital for exhaustion. Now, we've managed to track down this man who has certainly been very busy for the last couple of days. And this, of course, is Joburg Emergency Services spokesperson, Robert Mulaudzi. Robert, thank you.
I know
you were busy.
Good morning, Leanne, and morning to the viewers.
And I know that this interview that we had now was a little bit difficult, and I can imagine a bit difficult for you to listen to. But
yes,
it is, unfortunately, some of the realities that South Africans go through. And a lot of allegations have been made. And I think one that really stood out for me is saying that citizens, particularly here in the Joburg area, should be very worried if a fire breaks out, because we are not equipped, and fire personnel are not equipped, and I'm not saying not with skills, but with equipment to deal with these things. How would you like to respond to that?
I think we have always, we always confirmed the issues that we do have shortages in terms of vehicles in the city of Johannesburg Emergency Management Services. Most of our vehicles are old. They spend more time in the workshops being repaired instead of being on the road servicing our residents. Why is it like that? I think we took a lot of time, without replacing them, because they are there, 24/7. So right now, when we find ourselves in this situation, what is it that we do? It means that because we cannot afford to have each and every, fire station having a vehicle, we have to strategically place, these vehicles in areas where we know that there is a risk. In your interview now, you were talking about the number of fire stations throughout the city of Johannesburg. We're looking at about 30 fire stations throughout the city of Johannesburg, of which each and every fire station is supposed to have at least a first turnout vehicle, which is capable of conducting firefighting operations and rescue services, meaning that it will be able to go to and attend to motor vehicle accidents and things like that. Now, we may be operating on half of those vehicles, about 15 of those vehicles. So it means that we have to...
each fire station should have
at least
two.
one.
At least one?
Yes. And then over and above that, we'll have added one. If it's an area where there's a risk of felt fires, you'll have an added vehicle which is felt fire, capable of felt fire. Which, if it's a maybe area like Sentin, you'll have ladder platforms and things like that.
Can we safely say, in terms of, if we've got 30 fire stations, there are only 15 operating vehicles.
Yes.
Do some fire stations not even have a fire engine?
Yes.
They don't.
Some they don't have.
Some don't have.
Yes.
What's the point of having? What is the point of having a fire station without a fire engine? What are the staff meant to do?
No, remember, in the city of Johannesburg, we don't do only firefighting operations. Only we're also doing the emergency medical services. So we're doing both. So if we don't have a vehicle in terms of firefighting operations, those crews will be deployed in other stations which have got vehicles which they can utilize, and also they can also be deployed in medical services. However, I think we need to reassure our residents out there that we're doing our best with what we have. Which is actually unfair to you.
Yes, and it's no blame on you.
Yeah.
Who is responsible for fixing these vehicles, for funding the vehicles, and ensuring that everything should be in tip-top shape, so that if you get an emergency phone call, your firefighters can jump into those fire engines and go to the fire, extinguish it safely, so that citizens don't die?
Yeah,
Who is responsible for funding that?
I think the problem, actually, how did we find ourselves in this situation was that it was actually made worse by the situation when the service provider went on business rescue, because the service provider was supposed to supply us with the 30 initial vehicles, which I was talking about, the first 10 house vehicles, of which that process couldn't go through, and then we found ourselves in this situation. So yes, now we cannot stand by and say we are not going to be able to recall to emergencies because we have got a shortage of resources. We have to make sure that we utilize the ones we have while we are, continuing with the processes of replacing the whole fleet, we have to make sure that we strategically use the ones we have, and then make sure that our residents get the required service. Yeah, because we cannot say, no, we can't do anything about it. The situation is, we understand that the situation is dire. I think the mayor and the MMC, our political heads, it's good that they have acknowledged and they are willing to put more money on, emergency services. So I think the residents need to be rest assured that something is being done about, the situation. And of course, with this situation we find ourselves in, we have to do, make sure that we render effective professional emergency services out there.
Yeah, it does worry me, and we've lost 3 lives, and it hits you more because these are colleagues, these are friends, these are parents, these are brothers, these are sons that have now been lost, and this situation at the fire stations is nothing new. This has been going on for years, that we've been talking about the fact that there is a lack of fire engines, there's a lack of capacity, there's a lack of equipment available to fire staff and personnel. I mean, this was a tragedy waiting to happen, and it's happened now. And here we sit trying to figure out what we're going to do about it. And now everyone's admitting that there is a problem. But I mean, this is something that could have been, it could have been alleviated. It could have been avoided.
Yeah, it could have been alleviated, yes, you're right. But now, what do we do now? Because, we find ourselves in the situation. What do we do? Yeah. Because we have to render the service. Hence, I'm saying that, yes, we have to make sure that we utilize the ones, the resources which we have effectively, while the processes of making sure that we replace them. I mean, there is a lot of money which is going to be spent on, equipment, making sure that our firefighters are skilled and things like that. But we cannot shy away in terms of saying that with the limited resources we have to strategically place them. Of course, it will hamper in some of the incidents, it will hamper our response times because the vehicle will take much more longer period of time, which is going to be frustrating to our residents. But I think we're urging our residents to bear with us, in the situations we find ourselves in. Indeed. I mean, our political principle has acknowledged that we do have challenges, but the fact of the matter is we're doing something about it. We're just not sitting there and saying, no, I mean, there's nothing we can do, but we're doing something about it, and we need to acknowledge also, our firefighters out there, they're going out under very difficult conditions. They're doing their best, with the limited resources we have there, out there on a day-to-day basis, risking their lives, as we saw during the week, on Wednesday. Yeah. So we're doing our best. I think we need to acknowledge, the men and women,
and we are
in terms of what they're doing out there.
And we thank you for what you're doing under the circumstances. We're in our news at 7 o'clock now. This, of course, is a major story that we're still following, and I think the latest from this is the fact that the fire has now finally been extinguished. We're going to cross to our reporter in a short while, and I'm just going to continue this interview in our news at 7 o'clock, where we're going to just get confirmation, and let's just read that story to you if you've just tuned in. The fire that engulfed a building in central Johannesburg on Wednesday is finally extinguished late yesterday. However, some smoke is still coming off the smouldering remains of several floors of the building this morning, and firefighters are monitoring the site in case of flare-ups. The fire broke out on the 23rd floor of the building, which is occupied by the Gauteng Departments of Health and Human Settlement. 3 firefighters died while battling the blaze. And still with us, we've got Robert Mulaudzi, who is the emergency services spokesperson. Robert, just let's wrap up the interview in terms of some of the events that happened yesterday. So we're reporting the fire has been extinguished, but it still remains a very, very dangerous area to enter around. So talk to us about precautionary measures and where to from here for emergency services. Yes,
from our side, as you reported earlier on, we did receive assistance from our neighboring municipalities, which we have to thank them for their assistance, Ekurhuleni, Tshwane, and also SNDF. The teams will remain on standby if there is any possibilities of reignition, of which we are not, looking at them occurring anytime soon, because we have done all our best to make sure that there's no reignition. And also, we want to take also the opportunity to thank the residents of the city of Johannesburg who were supporting the firefighters, the people who are actually doing the work with whatever refreshments they needed on the day. There's a lot of organizations who came on board to assist us day and night, giving us messages of support after, we lost the 3 of our, firefighters. So we just want to urge our residents to work with us, during these difficult times. And from our side, we also promise to, do our best, in the situations we find ourselves in, to make sure that they receive, effective professional emergency services. Yes, of course, they've got a right to complain if we are rendering service which they are not expecting us to render. They need to complain so that we can better, improve the service which we're supposed to render. So from our side, we are doing all our best to make sure that with the resources we have, we render effective emergency services out there.
Robert, just one very quickly final question. The firefighters that have been hospitalized,
yes.
Are they still in hospital? What is their condition?
Out of the 8, the 5 have been discharged. It's only 2 now who are still in, a critical condition, I would say, yes.
Thank you, Robert. Thank you very much for talking to us and taking the time to be with us this morning. That's Emergency Services spokesperson Robert Mulaudzi, and he's giving us an update on the Bank of Lisbon building fire, which has now been extinguished, but it was raging on for 3